Yeah, hi. Oh. Oh my God, that's gonna be her one day, you guys. That is gonna be our little monster. Yeah, I know. On November 6, 2015, we had a polar bear cub born here at the Columbus Zoo. And as we do with all of our newborns, we watch via a camera just to make sure that we're seeing nursings, we're seeing good maternal behaviors, all of those things that go into proper care of an infant. So we watched for about 5 days, and on that 5th day, we noticed that Aurora, her mom, stepped out of the den. We weren't really too alarmed in the beginning just because this is a natural behavior, but we were just on alert just to make sure that she would go back and start caring for the cub again. After about 4 or 5 hours, Aurora had not gone in to see the cub. We went ahead and we made a very tough decision. We decided to go ahead and pull the cub on the basis of we weren't sure that Aurora was going to go back, and we were kind of up against kind of almost a deadline of the cub becoming too cold, not getting enough nourishment, and us being, kind of in a difficult position. The first step when she was at the hospital was to make sure her body temperature was good and make sure that her blood work and all of that other stuff was in check. While she was warming up, we had a very big meeting because, as one can imagine, hand-raising a polar bear cub is extremely difficult. Some statistics with that is there's only been about 8 hand-raised since 1982. At least that's as far back as the information we have gathered. So, decisions need to be made. What temperature does she need to be kept at? What food do we feed her? How often do we feed her? What should her weight be? All of these things. So a team was assembled for our little cub. Initially, that team consisted of myself, a keeper on grounds who has had years and years of hand-raising experience, and then one of our team members from the vet staff. After about a couple weeks, we brought in another person, another curator who has experience hand-raising babies, and then after a month in, we incorporated one of the polar bear keepers, as she's the one who's going to need to know this information for the future as well, and she knows polar bears the best. So those first few weeks, the first few days were very stressful. They were very exciting because, again, here we are needing to monitor everything that this cub did. She was eating at about every 2 hours. We were feeding her a very small amount. We decided the amount of food that we were going to give her was proportional to her body weight. So as she grew in grams, we would go up a percentage of formula each day. To kind of put it, blankly, we lived our lives by every 12 hours. Every 12 hours, we would get together for a meeting, decide if what we were doing was the right thing to do, and how she was responding to it. The one thing that we knew needed to happen was our little cub needed to gain weight every day. Again, this was a healthy balance of her not gaining too much, but then also not gaining so little that we were kind of behind on her. But she was a rock star. She really would gain about 100 grams per day, which was similar to the other zoos and the other information that we had. So we knew that, at least from what other zoos had collected, we were right there with where we should be. The first 30 days, we knew that her eyes wouldn't open until after that. And as a personal, victory, we all said when we get her to open up her eyes, that is the first deep breath we can take. So she opened her eyes at about 37 days, which is very exciting, her seeing this world for the first time. After that, she became very mobile. She didn't really walk around as you would think, a lot of kittens and other animals would do if you would compare it to. Reason because when they're in the den with mom, of course they're on ice, and they don't really need to move around. They just kind of slide around from here to there. Mom will move them around with her paws. But she was very strong. She was very active for what she could be. She started rolling over, which was adorable. So then at around 60 days, she was continuing to grow faster and faster. So now we're gaining about 200 grams a day. So we started increasing her diet and incorporating new things. We used a soft canned dog food for her just to get the taste of something solid, because again, going from a bottle onto something solid, it's very different for a cub to adjust to. Rolling through the next 30 days, she really started to gain strength, even in her back legs. So now she's standing, not really walking very well, but kind of standing and kind of wobbling, and then sitting back down. All good things that we wanted to see along the way. About 70 4 days in, we introduced water to her, which was huge, like a small tub of water that she could learn how to splash around in. Starting giving her larger enrichment toys, so now she's getting those big boomer balls that you see in with a lot of our animals. Still some soft toys because we understood she's still a baby. Her teeth were fairly small at this point. At around day 85, 86, now we're running. So she was hard to keep up with, I'll tell you. She it's almost like overnight. You watch her go from sitting and just kind of, basic routine, I sleep, I eat, I'm awake for 10 minutes, I go back to sleep. And this is how we are, just all day. To literally the next day, she's up and she's running around and maybe takes 2-3 naps per day. So yeah, it was another adjustment we had to do. So around 3.5 months, we got the all clear from the hospital and the vet staff to move her from the hospital down here to the polar bear building. We're very lucky to have this building here because when it was first built, it was built with cubs in mind. So it has multiple rooms in it and multiple abilities. It has a den where Nora was actually born. It also has a pool room. The pool is pretty important for us because this is where the cub is first going to be exposed to water with mom. But of course, Nora not having mom, she was first exposed to it with us. So it was kind of a challenge because this is not something that cubs are born knowing how to do. So what we did in the beginning to get her to understand that there is a different depth from what she's used to, we first filled it with straw. After a few days, it was only about 3 or 4 days, we took out all of the straw and we began filling it with water. And we only filled it with about 2-3 inches of water and put all of her favorite toys in there and just made it the best place ever. She was a little hesitant in the beginning, but after again a few days, she started getting into it and having a lot of fun in it. So as she was more comfortable, we started to rise the water. So we got to about 6 inches, and that was about where she was done. So we stayed there for about 1.5 weeks, 2 weeks, and decided that we're not going to push too far with her. In the meantime, what we were also doing with her was we were getting to expose her to all of the elements it takes to be a polar bear here at the zoo. Meaning she could hear the other bears, she could see the other bears, she could smell the other bears. So those were all new experiences for her. She also started learning how to move from room to room and have the doors closed behind her because it can be a little jarring. The doors are large compared to this little polar bear cub who's about 35 pounds. Because of course we have adults in the building, so we need to be prepared for adults and cubs. So along this entire journey, Nora has always told us when she's ready for the next step. So the next step for us was to take her to an outside yard, which we call here the maternity yard. This is just an extension off from the den and the indoor rooms that Nora first came down to. This yard is pretty much a dialed down version of our large yard, and it has mulch pits, it has grass, it has sand, and it also has a very large pool in it compared to what we have inside. So what we did as her team is we went out to the yard with her, and again this exposed her to a pool that's about 7 feet deep so she could start to learn how to swim. But we also had the ability to get in with her in case she got in there and she didn't know what to do, because again that's what mom's role would be. So we got to a point where she was starting to dive into the water, which was a lot of fun for her. She was very independent, so we decided we were going to bring her out to the large yard. Her team went with her into the yard and we exposed her to the big pool because the pool out here is a little larger than what we have in back, a lot deeper. The glass was something that she's never been exposed to either, and seeing people on the other side. The most important thing we wanted her to learn was that not to go and think that the glass was where she should exit the pool. She needed to understand that the glass is there and it's a barrier, she can't go through it. She needs to turn around and come back kind of the way she came in, towards land. So what we would do is we would let her get in the pool, kind of swim around, do her thing, and then we would call her back. We've got multiple exit points here on the pool, so we would kind of walk around and show her where each of those points were. She's a very smart little bear, so she caught on very quickly. But once we were comfortable with that and knew that she knew the entire yard, her team stepped away, and here she is in the yard all by herself now. So it was a very, very exciting time for her. The next question in the next phase is, what does her future bring? Ultimately, Nora will go with another bear. We just don't know what that looks like just yet. You know, there's several options. Maybe she'll go with our group here. Maybe we'll bring another bear in for her to be with, or she might even go to another zoo. So at this point, we don't know what we're going to do, but whatever we decide is going to be what's best for Nora. So we're very excited to watch Nora grow and be in the yard by herself, because ultimately this was our goal. Our goal was to get her out here and in the pool, and for everybody to meet her, because we know everybody's been watching her along this entire journey. We're at personally, we're at a weird stage where we're excited for her to be in the yard, and you step back and you see everything that you've done, and you know that the decisions you made along the way for what's best for her, and here we are. Here she is, happy and healthy, and a polar bear. So we knew going into the situation that statistically hand-rearing a polar bear was not in our favor. I believe there's about 8 that were in hand, and of those 8, only 5 have ever survived. Nora will make number 6 now, and so we're very excited about that. But you know, when this whole situation, looking back, we've taken an animal from 672 grams from that very first day that we had her in hand, and now she's 50 plus and growing so fast, to growing about 10 pounds a week or so at this point. And you do, because along the entire journey there were moments where we weren't guessing, but we just didn't know if the answers that we had were the right ones. And you kind of stop and you say, well, let's see how she does. And I think having her out into the yard just shows the dedication and the commitment and the unwillingness for us to give up on her. And she's, we say this about ourselves, but she's an independent, she's a little fighter, she's feisty, and I think it's her personality that also helped us get through this entire journey. So again, it's a strange spot to be in, but it's what we do here at the zoo. This is why we are one of the best out there, because we have people who are so committed to these animals, and it doesn't matter if you're working 22 to 28 hour shifts. It's what's needed, it's what we're gonna do. So very honored to be part of Nora's team, and I can't wait to see what life holds for her next.